Okay, so I've been doing a little bit more messing around. I'll get you turned around here and start talking about what I've been up to. Last 2 or 3 days, I haven't done any filming. Just kind of boring, but all necessary stuff. Let you know what happened. Okay, so the first thing I had to do this week was I had to get this outside. I got it all pressure washed and degreased as much as possible without taking the subframes out. So I got it cut down to where I'm about comfortable with it right now. And I took the brake lines and the fuel lines out of it. And also what I did was right here in the center was a mount underneath there where the parking brake, emergency brake, there's a single cable comes in, and then there's a little lever that basically breaks it off into two cables, and those two cables come out to the rear end over here. And underneath there, spot welded on there, was the mounting bracket that, and this is half of it right here. And I cut it in half because basically this half has to follow the back half of the car when it gets to the point where I'm getting ready to split it off, and the other half has to stay with the forward section over there. So I left the front mounting plate in place. Now, I was thinking about how the heck I'm going to extend this parking brake cable, but so I remembered I had this, and I have a crimping tool. Basically, this slides over top of the existing cable right here, and then you would slide another section of cable here, and then crimp the whole mess together. It's a regular, like a lead cable crimp here. They work pretty good. Anyway, that'll give me my extra 15 inches when I pull the pan apart here and stretch this out. I've got it up on these little stands, wooden stands, on top of these rollers here that are going to help me roll the back section away and the front section away from each other so I can spread it out. Right now, I'm making up these dolly wheels on 2x2 steel. It's just some scrap steel I had. Anyway, so these are braced back here so they're solid. And this is basically where I've picked this point here where I'm going to cut this apart. And this way I'll have the front tires on these dollies, and then there'll be these dolly wheels on the back of this front section and on the front of the back section. So I'll be able to separate these two halves and get them to apart where I'll be able to figure out what I'm going to do next to add the frame rails. The other issue that I've been dealing with is my my track width on the rear, because the Camaro, I don't know if I can show you the wheels on the Camaro, not these rear wheels, these are just rollers, but this is the Camaro stock wheel. Now, the wheels on these cars are not very attractive, to say the least. Back in the 90s, the Firebird and the Camaro both had some really, they look like hubcaps because they're super shallow, and they've like a 2-inch offset on them, which in shopping for wheels and stuff, aftermarket wheels, there's just nothing with this same offset that looks, actually I haven't found anything with this offset that looks decent. It's just it's a unending, I got basically tired of looking at wheels and just trying to find something that would meet the offsets and basically match this wheel but look not too horsey. The reason why is because I came over to the body and did some measurements and did a little layout over here, and right here I have some lines on this 2x4 that's slung underneath the car so that I can run a level up from this line here. And this is centered up in the car. This first line represents where the stock wheels, the Camaro wheels, would end up. The second line is where I have a set of wheels out on the Pontiac GT. I'll show you them in a minute, where they would land. And then this line over here is actually these wide, I think they're 9.5-inch wheels in the back over here that came off the El Camino. They're they're nice looking as far as the width is concerned. I don't like the old style, but it's easier to find that in an aftermarket wheel. Well, the problem is you have to get all the way back to this line for this to fall within like a ½ inch of getting it on the inside of this outer lip. Problem is that the way this is set up, this cuts in very quickly. So it's not like you've got a nice rolled quarter panel up here to where the tire and everything can go back up inside there easily without having some issues rubbing. So that's the stock wheel, which, like I said, I couldn't find anything decent. So the next option is to decide to alter the body in some way and go with maybe this selection, which I think I can probably find some aftermarket wheels, because these wheels are newer that kind of look like these are 18-inch by 8s high-tech racing wheels. I couldn't even find these online. I don't know if they're discontinued or what, but at any rate, my main focus is the surface of the tire relative to the mounting surface over here. And this wheel is about 3/4 of an inch further out than the Camaro wheels, but it's a better looking wheel. Has a little more modern look to it. I like it. I may end up just using the ones right off of this car and then just putting some stock wheels on this car. But if that's what it comes to, because I can probably work it out with those if I can't find a comparable wheel. Anyway, it's not the wheel selection that I wanted to go with, but none of the wheels that I'm looking at are going to fall within it. So one of my solutions was to take and mock this up here. Oops, sorry about that. Well, nearly dropped the phone, but anyway, this is my solution that I've come up with, hopefully. And that's basically I've taken and leaned this out over here a little bit and then made it vertical again and created basically a space for that tire to go up in too. And of course it's just a mock-up and it'll need to be refined, but I think that's going to do it without having a wide body or take the quarter panels out and do some crazy stuff that'll make it look horsey. I'm going to try and keep it at least a little bit stock appearing. I may have to make this profile a little taller, then slant this in a little bit more directly. I'll have to play with it. It's a little ways off, but I do know that if I use those wheels and I bring it out to here, this line lines up with exactly with the outside of the stock rim. So those wheels and tires are definitely not going to be clear enough to go inside of the body. Anyway, I've been wrestling with that, going back and forth a bunch, trying to figure out what I want to do. I just don't want to cut these quarters off and, you know, come up with some crazy looking thing. And so I think this is going to work. We'll just have to see if I can refine it a little bit better. Of course, it's in green tape now, so it looks a little bit obvious, but hopefully I'll be able to blend it in a little bit better. So at any rate, that's what I'm up to on this stuff here. And I'll just keep digging along, see how that all goes. All right, so it's cut in half and moved out 15 inches, and that's what I need to do. So that was the easy part. Now I've got to figure out how I'm going to patch it all back together. And so that'll be quite an adventure, getting all that back together so it's one piece again. Anyway, that's where I am with this right now. I will move on from here. All right, got to stabilize everything here with this 2x2, or excuse me, it's about 1.5 by 1.5 tubing, 065 wall, and now you can see why I left this outer frame rail on here for now. It's a good place to temporarily tack this piece. It's expendable, but it's also something that's really good to align it, you know, front to rear. Make sure that we're good to go here, and then my spacing is measured off here, 15 inches on both sides to increase the wheelbase from 102 to 117 for the El Camino. Anyway, now comes the task of getting in here and extending everything that was cut in half with some substantial material so that everything is as sturdy or sturdier, hopefully, than it was when I cut it apart. All right, so I'm building a mock-up now out of some thin sheet metal to get a sense of how I want to do this to join the front and rear halves. And what basically I'm going to end up doing is I'm going to make this out of probably a 14 gauge steel, because that's what this is made out of. So I won't be able to do these bends and everything. I'm going to have to actually take individual pieces and weld them up in this shape. I would have preferred to have been able to, well, bend all this around and make one solid piece, but take a little longer. But it's the tooling that I have only allows me to do so much. I think my sheet metal brake over there is up to 16 gauge is the highest that it will go as far as thickness is concerned. So anyway, basically I have to weave my way around all of these members all the way out to this point here. I've got about I've got an overlap on both sides of about 2 inches on either side, so it'll be welded on the outside and also on the inside edge here once this is all set. Also including the flanges that'll hold the future floor pan that'll join the front and the rear sections here. So anyway, just trying to see how everything's going to flow. It's kind of easy because it was cut in one spot. This is not really a complicated piece because it's just straight. All these pieces go straight back because this is the same dimension as where I cut it, obviously. So that's a bonus. Anyway, that's where I am with that. I'll just keep on digging. All right, it turns out I was able to actually bend the 14 gauge on my brake because it was soft enough. But I still had to break it up into small pieces, and as a consequence, some places I had to do an overlap. In other words, come up this side and then overlap onto this piece over here, and then plug weld these two pieces together. Right now I'm in the process of just putting in some seam sealer where I do have the overlaps and the plug welds. Just got a little primer on here right now, just to keep it from flash rusting, and then I'll put a little bit thicker Rust-Oleum type paint on here. Anyway, before I cover it over, and I won't be able to see it. This is all pretty substantial now. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. It's almost two frame rails here joining the front and the rear together. This area here is actually the part that has the most strength because that's where you have your pickup point for your trailing arms in the back over here. So this over here was actually, this was like an 18 gauge, but I went ahead and used the 14 gauge all the way along just because of the expanse. In addition, I'll be putting in frame rail into this void over here. You can't quite see it. Basically, it's underneath this section here. I'll be putting a 2x3 rail tucked up into here, and that'll go the full length of the car. It'll be one piece before I go and cut any of this away and get rid of this. So yeah, so I've got to inch my way over there, and this took a couple days to do based on the fact that everything had to be cut with nothing could be sheared. I had to be cut with an abrasive wheel, and that takes a little bit of time. But this is the most important part, getting this all to be rigid, so I can swap it up underneath of that thing over there. So I'll just keep on going here. All right, I don't know how well you can see this under here, but this is these two frame extensions that I've just completed over here on both sides. So the front half and the back half of this car are put back together pretty solidly at this point. I still have to fill in with the floor pan, and I still have to add a frame rail up in this pocket right here on both sides in order to kind of just go the extra mile and reinforce it. I'm probably going to end up going with a 2x2 instead of a 2x3 in here, just because of a couple of things that have come up. One being that I had originally intended to cut this down about 1.5 inches from here and make that the top of the pinch weld. You can see that line over there, I guess, that blue line. That was going to be where I was going to cut this over here for width considerations, and also to get this up inside the El Camino a little bit further, since I have such a good distance to the top of the dash on this car relative to that one, about 2 inches. So I wanted to get it up closer to the windshield. Unfortunately, I have several limiting factors here. I'll show you what they are. I've taken and I've got this string clamped right here, about 5 inches down from the top of the pinch weld here, so that I can get a straight line to shoot out past the floor that's still in here and give me an idea what the distance is from the top of the pinch weld, which I have to measure 5 inches up from this string here. You can see this string's pulled tight here, to the bottom of the bed over here. And that limitation right there is what I'm dealing with right now, because when the top of the pinch weld right here is lined up with that top of that pinch weld, we have to consider how far I can trim this down. And I cut this top of this structure out here to show this is the top of the spring bucket right here, this material here. So that's about down here. So that's really as far as I can trim this down, or else I'll have to alter the springs and the spring bucket. The whole thing would be pointless. So the bed actually would come in right on top of this little ledge here, which means that these little shock tops here would have to be covered with some sort of a cap inside the bed. Not ideal, but it's a compromise I'm going to have to do if I want to continue to use this whole setup here the way I've got it. For a little while, I was considering taking the back half of the El Camino chassis, and I was looking to just take that whole thing and swap it back into the car and not worry about any of this. But then I'd have to remount this rear end, which this rear end has it has a whole different mounting system, but I'd have to cut everything off that it's mounted on, and then cut all the mounts off, or fabricate mounts for the springs and everything in the location. Reason being is that the ABS system in this car works off a reading of a reluctor wheel in the gear inside the rear end, as opposed to on the hubs in the back over here. In the front, it's the front two hubs that have reluctor wheels on them that read the speed of the wheel. And so this is the actual speed sensor in the rear of the car, one single one in the middle of the housing. So I have to use that rear end. And since I would have to use that rear end, I would have to remount it in that, which kind of defeats the purpose of a lot of things. Anyway, I won't go into all of that. It's a lot of various mounting points and stuff that wouldn't work out. But, so here I am. This is what it looks like from the top side, with all these overlaps and double plating and stuff like that to make this a little stronger than it normally would have been, because normally it'll only go from this point to this point, and now we've got this long stretch. So I still have to fill in the floor pan across the top over here, and so it will be a little bit of a process. You know, like I said, get those two frame rails in on either side, so this is as solid as it can be. And from that point on, that's when I'll go ahead and trim off these outer frame rails and start dealing with that. In the meantime, I'm going to probably end up cutting this down, see where that all ends up, and then if I have to put any reinforcement back here, I don't think I will, but I'm probably going to cap it at least up to this point here. Try to make that a little more solid, and we'll go on from there. But as far as this video is concerned, this is where I'm going to end it, and I will see you on the next one.